Buongiorno, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Venice, Italy. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use a Tiffen variable filter and do a lone exposure with a sunset in colors. 4 tips that will change the way you do lone exposure with colors. Let's get started. All right, guys, so before we get started, I just want to say you can still get a copy of my latest book on Lightroom Classic. It's the best book I ever wrote on Lightroom. It's called The Natural Drama. It gives you 5 steps that you can use on your RAW file. The book goes for $47, but for a limited time only, you can get it for free. The link is right under this video. All right, so this is the final photo we're going to work with. If you press I on Lightroom, it shows you exactly how long this was shot. This was shot 120 seconds long. Now, the way I do this is I use a ND variable filter. In fact, I use exactly this one. You have the link down below. I use the Tiffen 77 variable neutral density filter. When it comes for sunset lone exposure, that's what I like to use. I don't like to use an ND 1000. It's too strong. And the light changes so much that it's kind of good to have a variable so you can really decide on the exposure that you want. And you just, basically what I do is I go at 100 ISO, as you can see here, f16, and then I take a shot. So I put my camera on 2 minutes. So I'm using the GFX 100S. In fact, I'm going to give you that RAW file so you can play around with it. It's a 102 million RAW file. Look at this. Look how sharp it is. GFX 100S, one of the best camera in the world. You can retouch it and you can just post it. Just follow me on @photosurge on Instagram and tag me on @photosurge. Give me the credit for the photo and you can retouch it like you want if you don't have the possibility of coming to Paris and doing a colorful lone exposure. So that's the trick number 1. I'm not sponsored by Tiffen. I wish I would be sponsored. If you work at Tiffen, contact me. But this is what I use. And so what I do, check this out. This is 120-second exposure, and then I closed down the filter and I took the exact same lone exposure, but it's much darker. The problem is you can see there's like a ghost there because there was so much people coming in on the bridge when I was shooting. It was really annoying. And that's the good thing about very lone exposure is that when people were passing in front of my camera, they just got erased. So that's the tip number 1. Use a variable ND filter, and all you do is you put on the filter, you take a photo. If it's too dark, then you close the filter. If it's too bright, then you open the filter until you have the exposure. Now, honestly, I would have preferred this exposure instead of that exposure. And I want to show you the exposure before. This is without ND filters. This is just a 3-second at f32. But the lights were not on. You can see all the texture of the sky. I mean, it's kind of nice. But then I decided to go lone exposure by putting the variable filter. And boom, the lights turn on, which is even better. And so the photo we're going to be retouching in this one, not this one. This one is a little overexposed. But because it's a RAW file and because it's a Fuji RAW file, there's so much data you will see. It's not going to be a problem. So that's the trick number 1. So now let's start retouching the photo. I'm going to open up the shadows all the way. I'm going to bring down the highlights. I'm going to use the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on Windows to have a very strong black point. What you see here in black and red and blue is pure black. I want about that much of pure black. That's very important for my contrast. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the white. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold on the Option key. And I don't want to burn any light, so I'm going to stop at the threshold. What you see here, holding the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on Windows, is pure burn light, which I don't want. Okay, then I'm going to make the whole photo darker because I want to give that night feeling. It was night after all. And voila. Now, tip number 2, and that's very important, is the double white balance. It's really hard to have one white balance to rule them all. So if I go, for example, to daylight, I love my sky. It's very blue, but the whole photo has got very cold feeling. I wanted a warmer feeling. If I go to cloudy, now the sky it's still a little bit blue, but it's a little warmer, which I kind of like, but it's too grayish here, and it's not warm enough here. And if I go to shade, it's even worse. Shade, now the sky is completely gray. And I like my yellow here. The yellow is good, but the rest is really bad. So what can I do? What I usually do is I go to in the middle. I go to cloudy. So again, daylight, very blue, cloudy, a little warmer, and shade a little warmer, okay? I go to the middle one, which is cloudy. I add a bit of magenta because I'm a magenta addict. I'm actually seeing somebody about that. I hope that's going to be better for me. And then what I do is I'm going to make a double exposure. So I'm going to, with two things, I'm going to go here and I'm going to add a gradient, linear gradient, click and drag, and I'm going to add back some of the blue in that sky because I feel it's missing, and maybe a bit of magenta, okay, on the first half of the sky. So I'm still getting, check it out, before, after. See how the before, after, how it's more blue. To show you more, I'm gonna go on never on the gradient, so you can see before, after. See, subtle change, but it's kind of cool. Now, so now we did an overall white balance, plus we did a white balance for the very top. I'm gonna do one more white balance for the sky here, the sunset. Let me go back to auto so you can see the circle. All right, and on this one, I'm just gonna add a bit of yellow. See, not too much, but I just want to, you know, that yellow is kind of gone. It's really hard to do a full white balance for, especially long exposure, especially color long exposure. It's crazy. So that was my trick number 2, is do a double long exposure. Now, oh, can I ask you just one favor? If you like this type of content, please give it a like. It really helps for other people to see this kind of videos. Thank you very much. It makes a huge difference. Just a little like, one little like. Thank you so much. Trick number 3 is you got to refine your colors in HSL. What is HSL? Thank you for asking. It's hue, saturation, and luminance. So hue is basically the different kind of colors. And to make it simple, all I do, I'm very lazy. I click on this tool here, which is called the targeted tool, and I click and drag up on my sky, or drag down on my sky, and I see what it does to it. Up, it goes very greenish. Down, it goes very reddish. So I'm just going to go down a little bit. Okay, I'm happy with that. Then I go to saturation. Saturation is about how vivid can a color be. Same thing, I have the same tool. I click, and if I go up, I add saturation just on the yellow and the orange, mostly on the yellow here. And if I go down and take it out, I'm going to add a bit of saturation. Okay. And then I got luminance. Now, a color can be vivid or not vivid, but also a color can be dark or bright. So I can click. If I go up, it becomes very whitish. If I go down, it becomes a much darker yellow, which I'm going to do just a little bit. And I can do the same thing for the sky. If I go up, sky becomes bright. If I go down, it becomes a darker blue, which is kind of what I like. Tip number 4, and that is to use a brush to make your stretchy clouds come out. You see, there's a lot of stretchy clouds there, but we don't see them enough. So what I do is I go here and I take a little brush, and with the middle mouse, I can make it bigger or smaller. I make it like this. I usually put the flow and density in the 50s because I don't want it to be too strong. I add a bit of exposure and check it out. Now what I do is I just follow the white lines that's already there, maybe a little more exposure, and I just make the stretchy cloud come out a little more, just slightly more, because the whole idea of the long exposure is to have the stretchy cloud. That's what makes the photo, right? So you want to enhance that with some dodging. And so I'm dodging the sky, but very lightly. Check it out. Before the dodging, after the dodging. Before, after. It really makes the stretchy cloud comes out. But make sure your flow and density is in the 50s, okay? And then basically at this point, you can add a bit of contrast. You know, I always use minus clarity because minus clarity just gives it a more diffuse look. And then I'm going to maybe add a bit of texture. And voila, look at that. Look how sharp this photo is and how beautiful. This is the Alexander III Bridge in Paris. Don't forget to get my latest book on Lightroom. It's called Natural Drama. The link is under this video. With this book, it's going to show you, there's over 200 sliders in Lightroom. It's going to show you which one to use on your raw file. It's going to blow you away. It's $47, but you can get it for free if you watch the masterclass. The link is under the video. All right, guys, I'll see you in another video.